Dear students, in the previous classes we have studied about the concept organizational behavior, the general information. And just in the last class we saw the relationship between the discipline organization and behavior with the other subjects. So what all things other subjects have contributed to the subject of organizational behavior, and I have concluded that organizational behavior is not an independent subject, rather it is rather it is taken out from many other subjects. Today we are seeing how this subject had developed and how this concept of organizational behavior developed. So evolution and approaches. See here I would like to say one thing: evolution and approaches. The evolution means the process of growth. So from where it has grown, from the beginning till the recent times where it has grown, one thing we are going to tell. Then approaches, what are the steps and what are the various approaches that used. Now what I want to say is here, when the management has begun, the word management has begun, from there itself the evolution of the organizational behavior has started, because the management means there are people, so the people means there is a behavior, a thought has to be given, but the thought style has changed. And to tell you, in the initial stages the management began with the scientific management. Before than that there was no such management systematic management as such. So in the scientific management, what it says, then we have another Henry Fayol. So Henry Fayol's administrative management, what he has said. So after that, what he has. So every step we are going to study. Now, before I going to tell you something about this topic, evolution and approaches of the organization behavior, I am going little fast. The reason is very simple. Whatever that you studied in the management, that we are going to study. See, in the management we were concentrating on the managerial aspects only. Managerial aspects. Here we are concentrating only what is that the system has contributed to the organizational behavior. But to see that, we must know what is that approach is. So we'll go one after the another, but let's see before than that little introduction. So different management specialists stressed to find out the answers to various problems which have a relation to the difficulties of human behavior in organizations. So different management specialists, we know that Elton Mayo or F.W. Taylor, Henry Fayol, so various proponents have stressed on this aspect. The studies were limited to the area of organizational planning, designing organizational structure, and regulating human behavior in organizations. See, in the beginning, initial stages, these management proponents, specialists concentrated mainly on organizational planning, what is planning to be done, and organization designing, so structure, how to frame the structure, and regulating human behavior, how you can regulate. These are the only concepts. Rather than studying about the behavior, they have never concentrated much on the behavioral aspects. The main focus of almost all the researchers at that time was on the designing of organizational structure, and a very important aspect, namely analyzing human behavior in organizations, remained unexploited. So this you see, the analyzing human behavior in the organizations were not touched upon in the previous studies and in the initial studies. So just here itself I tell you, all the beginning of the this one touching of the human resource analysis of human behavior started with the study of Elton Mayo. So human resource approach you give. So human relations approach. Till then, everything was concentrated on, as it is said here, organizational structure, and productivity was the concentration. Human relations was not the concentration. The approaches at that time were mainly scientific management, administrative management, and bureaucratic management. These are the classical management theories. So we know these during these times first began with F.W. Taylor's scientific management, and next came with the administrative management. In the administrative management also, the concentration was completely organizing. Then bureaucratic management. So these were the main theories of the management that are there. Now we are going to study all these also for the sake of having a awareness how they have contributed a little to the this one organizational behavior. The spinning point which came in the thinking of management specialists came with the Hawthorne Experiments, which was conducted by Elton Mayo and his colleagues from Harvard Business School. So, as I have said, that Hawthorne experiments were conducted to study and analyze the human behaviors in the organization. That's by Elton Mayo. We have studied once again. This time also, we'll see one after the another little information of that. The viewpoint was that obedience to management principles is not sufficient to make the management of an organization successful, but the employees of an organization should also be given due attention and concern. So, what was the common understanding is that obedience to the management principles is not sufficient for a high what you call success of the enterprise or success of the organization. So, organization to be successful, employees an organization should also be given due attention and concern. So, human resource, what is there in your organization, need to be looked after very well. They need to be given a proper attention. They need to be taken for consideration. Then only you can have a successful organization. Okay, in the previous year, in the olden days, that concept was lacking, and it didn't make much difference because people were ready to work at any time, any situations, any difficulties. But today the things have changed. So only with the better positions and better conditions, people are working. Otherwise, nobody will work. So after that, various other researches are also performed in the same area. Now let's move with some approaches that are there. So already I have said. So approaches to organizational behavior, we have here classical approaches, then neoclassical approaches, modern approaches. So we are going to study all these approaches of the management. So be clear. So classical approaches, neoclassical approaches, modern approaches. I am sure that of all these you have studied in first year MCom when you are studying the management theory and practice subject. But I will not say that okay you refer there just because it is my duty also to explain these topics in your subject, and repetition is always good and repetition makes a man perfect. That's what my understanding is. So by repeating you will learn better. So without learning and going it's not that good. So at least, and this is something contribute something main basic contribution of the contributions of the management. How the people have given thoughts on the management, that will be understanding here. Therefore, okay, whatever you have studied, just recall them. And here I will give a little information. But as I was said, I can't give you a detailed information regarding this because we have to study a lot other more things. But I will make a attempt that these things also will not be studied. So, all the approaches to the organizational behavior, all these are the management theories. We have a what you call three categories: classical, neoclassical, and modern. So you must be clear. So in the classical we have a scientific management, then administrative management, then bureaucratic management. In the neoclassical approaches we have a human relations approach, human behavior or human resource approach. And then we have modern approaches like a systems approach, then a contingency or situational approach. Then there are other so many modern techniques and all we are not going to touch upon. For our understanding and our need, these many approaches are sufficient. How over the years that organizational behavior has evolved. So the classical school of management, it was from 1900 to 1930. So this is the period. For 30 years this classical approach people have made a study. So after that neoclassical era had begun. So before 1900, was there no any thought on management? Yes, there was, but it was not scientific and not systematic. So what you call randomly whatever they felt and accordingly they had done the management. But after 1900 only a systematic concentration came on managing the organizations. Okay. So classical approach. The classical approach to organizational behavior came into force around the year 1900. The term classical may be defined as something which has a traditional acceptance or a long formation. The principles formed under this approach are also applicable in the present context. This approach was based on the assumption that more consideration should be given to production rather than manpower in an organization. An employee can be motivated through monetary incentives as per the conviction of classical approach. So, what is the classical approach? It says. So, what are the interpretations of classical approach? So, interconnected and systematic management functions. So, the main concentration was let the management should be of a systematic nature. That's what the one of the concentration. So, the functions of management such as planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling are interconnected, and their systematic coordination is the core of management. So all these functions were there of the management that what you call they are interconnected. One is connected with the another, not the independent. Therefore, a systematic coordination is required. A specific function of management is comprised of in other functions, that is planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. Thus, the working of a manager in an organization can be described by the functions of management. So, whatever the functions of management are there it is explained very well how to coordinate and what is the requirement of a manager. Supervisory principles. Classical approach to organizational behavior laid the foundation of many management principles which deliver rules for the management of human behavior. The nature of these principles is rigid and they are applicable everywhere. What it says is supervisory nature. Okay, management in the scientific management it was very clearly stated that human resource whatever are there in the organization need to be supervised to increase the productivity, because the concentration of the scientific management or the classical theories were always what you call increasing the productivity, and to increase the productivity you need to supervise, and supervisory approach was very rigorous and systematic. Strict rules and regulations were there, not the liberal. And the third one is inflexible organizational structure. The classical approach has provided an inflexible and rigid organizational structure for monitoring human behavior. See, today it is all things are flexible. If you are not going for a job at exact time, whatever possibilities are there, they are available. Even work from home is available, but in the during the olden days there it was very rigorous and strict. This much time you come, this only time you have to work. So all those things, and structure was very flexible, cannot be changed, not inflexible, rather it is not flexible, rather inflexible. Monetary incentives for motivation. Classical approach is of the view that monetary incentives should be provided to employees which will be source of great motivation for performance. So if you want to any additional performance, give some monetary benefit, some money, additional payment. So but today things are not that. Even what you call non-monetary methods also could be used for motivation. Okay, person you want to work very highly, okay, give him a good position, give him a appreciation, that is also sufficient. But these thoughts were not given in a classical approach. I hope you understand what are the concepts of this one. A systematic management function, that is one first one, because it is all the functions of management are interconnected, and to have a better coordination systematic management was required. Then second was a supervisory principles. That concept also developed from classical approach, means you require to supervise the people. Then inflexible organization structure. The classical, this means rigorous systematic rules and regulations. Then monetary incentives, so give money for more work. So these are the concepts which are contributing little bit to the organizational behavior, speaking to the touching upon the behavior of the human resource. So let's move with now scientific management. Today I will be explaining only with one theory, that is scientific management, and after that I will be explaining administrative theory and bureaucratic. After that we will be going to the human relations approach, and finally we will be going with the modern approaches. So be clear, I will be dealing with this whole subject approaches in 3 classes. So 3 or 4 classes. Surely I require 4 classes because today I'll be explaining only scientific management, and tomorrow I'll be explaining the administrative and bureaucratic management, and after that we'll go with the human relations approach and modern approaches. Okay. So scientific management, I am sure you have studied. F.W. Taylor has given. So principles of scientific management also you are aware of that. But still a little bit to go back will go. But I will be going very fast. The credit of introducing the concept of scientific management goes to F.W. Taylor. He is regarded as the father of scientific management. This concept was introduced by him in USA in the beginning of the 20th century. Besides Taylor, Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, Henry L. Gantt and Harrington Emerson have also contributed significantly to the growth and development of the concept of scientific management. Scientific management is mainly developed by F.W. Taylor. We are very aware and we have studied. But at the same time, we cannot neglect that a little bit contributions are be given by other personnel who are here. See, these people also have a little one or two concepts of the scientific management contributed. The term scientific management, when defined in literary terms, means doing the work of management in a scientific manner. Thus, scientific management may be defined as a removal of the traditional approaches to management and implementing innovative and more scientific approaches. So, removing the traditional approach and applying the scientific approaches was the main basic, because in the traditions whatever felt and whatever was there from the olden days, that only they were continued to do it. But here this scientific management says let's come with some systematic approaches. Scientific, so scientific means it has to be conducted with the experiments, and with the experiments you are revealing that it should be there is a cause and effect. If you do like this, it will be like this. So that way science it is not just anything. Then Taylor was of the view that before starting a work, manager should make a thorough analysis of it and should take his decisions accordingly. So it is a basic requirement, a thorough study before doing anything. That's what the basic concept of the scientific management. So principles of scientific management. I hope that you are all have studied, and but now here my job is just to recall the principles of management. So to bring back to your memory what you have studied. Substituting a rule of thumb with the application of science. This was one of the main concepts. See, in whatever you do, whatever methods of productions are there. So you are not doing in the traditions whatever done procedures. So here you are doing a scientifically whatever methods to be used, you are planning out, writing down step after step, this step, this step, this step, this step. The process are all very systematically planned and systematically given a thought and procedure. So simply anything is doing is not valid. So that is what the substituting rule of thumb. Rule of thumb means whoever had the authority, they will say something and let anything goes on. One with the power it goes, but and tradition it happens. Today it is not that. So everything need to be calculated. Before doing anything, you have to calculate, you have to plan. So you have to see the steps in that procedure. So that is what called the application of science. This is a one principle of the science, not rule of thumb, rather science. Second one is harmony between labor and management. See, there are always in the every organization two groups. One is management group, another is a labor group. Employees and the employer. Sometimes employer is one person because he is the one. Sometimes he is the sole trading company. Sometimes employer may be two. Sometimes it may be a board of directors. So management body is there in the many organizations and many companies today. It is not one person managing. So there is a board of directors and they manage. Therefore the board of directors and labor, not only board of directors in the workplace, what is more important is there are people who is managing, means manager we call, supervisors. So upper level people in the hierarchy are there. So there should be a close relationship between these lower level people, upper level people, whoever may be, whoever working in the organization. There should be in the groups and all. There should not be. There should be better coordinations. So harmony is more important. So this is the second principle. And the third principle is systematic selection and training of workers. See, this is regarding the staffing. So, and it is also this aspect is giving more importance to the human relations approach. See, you have to be very clear. See, this also gives a concept to the human resource organizational behavior contribution. This also is a organization behavior. What it says is, when you are selecting a people to your organization, see properly and select the people. Systematic selection. Don't simply bring any people on the way whomsoever you meet. Okay, your friend is there, your family member is there, don't bring. See that the other is a qualified, one thing. Second, in training of workers, continuous training has to be given to the workers, otherwise they become incompetent. Okay, new things come, train it, train it. So training is another aspect that is stressed in the scientific management. Therefore, systematic selection and systematic selection and training of workers is also one of the important aspect where is stressed in the classical approach of the scientific management, and today it is a contribution to the organizational behavior. Organizational behavior absolutely takes this concept because you have to take a proper personnel to your organization. And then maximum production. So we are very clear that scientific management was the concept where stressed how you can produce maximum. So that's the main concept they are, not the what you call qualitative product, rather than the quantity they had more interest. Then equality and fairness in division of responsibility. See, whenever you are giving any responsibility and all to some people more, some people less, so no, there should be a fair and equal division of responsibility for everybody according to their status and according to their gradation. Should be allocated their responsibility and their work. So that is also a contribution of the scientific management. And in the organization behavior also, you have to look after this fairness and equality. I hope now you understand when you are analyzing these principles of scientific management, there is a close connection between this and that. So organization behavior thought has begun during the scientific management itself, because the thoughts were on the human resource were put up there. But at the same time, it is not that a behavioral aspects as such, but rather general human resource management concepts are dealt in the scientific management. So let's see something more about scientific management. So techniques of scientific management. What are the techniques that are used in the scientific management? First one is scientific work study. So this is one of the techniques that were used in scientific management, scientific work study. He conducted various experiments and evidenced that if the steps in the production process are reduced to minimum, if at the time of doing work needless movements of the body are removed, if the time necessary for performing a work is properly determined, and if the employees are not treated like animals at the workplace, then inability to do work can be removed completely from the organization. By taking these experiments as base, he has categorized the work study into 4 parts which have been discussed as under. What he says is, to bring down the cost and to have a effective production, how you can do it, you have to study a scientific study. What all studies you conduct is how to do it, so that method study. Then motion study, movement study, then time study, how much time you require, then fatigue study, how much rest you require. That studies were conducted in the scientific management. So method study, the study which ascertains the most appropriate way of performing a particular activity, is known as a method study. The techniques which are used in this study are process chart and operation research. What it says is, so you have to prepare a process chart and method. First you have to do this. So methodically all your process of the production has to be put down. So method study. Second is motion study. While performing a job, the motions which are being performed by the workers and machines are covered under motion study. The study is performed with the help of a movie camera. Removal of needless and unwanted motions is the prime objective of this study. What it says is motion, movements of the people, movements of the products, and movements of the machinery in the organization is calculated. Where all possible to bring down such movements are calculated, because the moment you bring down the lessen the movements, then it is a better to the organizations where you can what you call save your time movements and all. So energy is saved, time is saved. So next is a motion study, and after that we have a time study. The study of deciding the standard time needed to complete a particular activity is known as a time study. A stopwatch is being used to perform in the time study. What it says is how much time you require to produce one product. That time has to be calculated. Okay, today you have produced 100 units by using 10 people. Okay, so within these many hours, one day 100 people, 10 people can produce the 100 units. So this is a calculation, time study. Then fatigue study. So the study related to deciding the duration and rate of occurrence of rest intervals to finish a particular job is termed as a fatigue study. So how much time for interval is required for the human being, that is also made a fatigue study. So every calculation, the method study, motion study, time study, fatigue study. So these if you study these, what happens is your scientific work study is over. So everything is calculated scientifically. So method is calculated scientifically, time is calculated scientifically, then the movements are calculated scientifically, only this much movements are required. Then rest timing also calculated scientifically. For this particular job, you require this much rest only. Okay, some hazardous job, then you require to give a more rest. If it is a lighter job, you give him a lighter rest. So that is a calculation. Let's move with some more techniques of scientific management. So systematic task planning. So task planning in a systematic manner may be defined as going through all the characteristics of a particular workforce before starting. That is, what is to be done, how is to be done, when is to be done, where it is to be done, and who is going to do. In every organization, there should be a separate department for planning for doing this work. So we know that there should be a planning department, and planning department will plan everything about the job, where, when, who, how to do it. Everything is to be planned out. Then systematic selection and training of workers. This is also a technique of the scientific management. So the process of selecting a right man for the right job but without any favoritism is known as the systematic or scientific selection. According to Taylor, there should be a separate personnel department in every organization which will make appointments of staff and will impart training to them before they are positioning of the job. Modern techniques and methods should be followed for giving training to the selected persons for the job in order to increase their efficiency. What it says is systematically selection has to be done, and to do this job there should be a separate department. That is, we usually call it HR department. Human resources department should be there in every organization, and they are giving a utmost concentration in the selection procedure. At the same time, after selecting a particular and what kind of nature of training should be given, what the employees actually require for a job to be done has to be taught them. Then finally we have setting up of standards. The process of setting standards for various activities of the business after due consideration of all the factors is termed as standardization. For example, a standard output can be fixed for a worker which is to be achieved by him every day. There can be standards for raw materials, machines, working conditions, tools and techniques, etc. Everything requires to be having a standard. Even the output of a person. Today, one person, how many units can be produced? Now, 10 people can produce 100 units per day. Then one person 10 units. So today, if you are coming for work, you should be able to complete 10 units. That is a standard of work. If you have not done that, okay, 9, then you will be questioned why not 10 and 9. If you are going above 10, 11, no, then you need to appreciate that person and make a additional payment for the motivation. That's what the scientific management always said. Then some more techniques are here. Differential wage system. It is the viewpoint of Taylor that a differential wage system should be followed as it will encourage the employees in an organization. As per this system, wages are paid to the workers on the basis of work done by them rather than on the basis of the time spent in the performing a work. Under this system, two wage rates are determined. One is the high wage rate and the other is the low wage rate. The workers are paid as per high wage rate if they are able to produce the standard units fixed for them within the specified time limit, and those who fail to achieve the standards are paid as per the lower wage rate. See, here standard was fixed. Now one person 10 units per day, as I have already said in my previous explanation. Now what it says is workers are not paid equally. Now if you are achieving the standard or above standard, high wage rate. If you are coming below the standard, then you are paid a low wage rate. So wage rate is fixed in two categories: high wage rate and low wage rate. It is not a piece wage rate. So there is another wage system is piece wage rate and time wage rate. So here it is not that, but you have a two categories: high wage rate and low wage rate. Those who are not working below the standard, then they are of paid low wage rate, and those who are working more achieving the standard or more than the standard, then they are paid high wage rate. Then mental revolution. The aim of mental revolution is to bring about a change in the attitude of both the managers and the workers. This change in the attitude of both the parties will bring about a feeling of cooperation among them. Usually there is a fight between labor and management on the division of profits. According to Taylor, such an attitude should be framed that both the parties should do hard work for increasing the profits. If such a thinking is developed, there should be an increase in production resulting in an increase in profits, and the topic of division of profits will be having no value. So what it says is to bring about a change in the attitude of both the managers and workers is more important. So always the people will think that, oh man, because of our labor they are earning more. So such an attitude should be what you call removed. And the this one what you call concentration is given, earn profits, more profits for both. So some contribution is given to the employees also if the organization is earning the profit. Functional foremanship or specialization. Functional foremanship is defined as making the full use of the expertise and skills of various specialists, which will lead to specialization. Under this concept, work is divided into various parts and each part is given one expert. By adopting this method, advantages of specialization are occupied. We know that division of labor also was introduced in the scientific management, and when the division of labor was introduced, so functional foremanship or specification was introduced, and according to one's specialization each job is given, and he will do a particular job. So there is a scope for the specialization. So here I will be concluding the scientific management. You have already studied, just a kind of repetition I did it, and I am sure that this is a base. This is a base for the organizational behavior, because most of the contents which I spoke today has something to do with the organizational behavior, and from there it has contributed. So tomorrow I will be going with another approach, that is the administrative approach. So be clear, these are the topics from the management theory and practice subject, but at the same time these are the topics in your subject also. Thank you.